You're getting a little sneak peek behind the scenes. I am about to record a podcast, so I'm going to set up my podcast. I'm going to record the podcast here live with you, so you're going to get a sneak peek in the podcast whole recording process. But then I'm going to record it on my computer to then go live on all of your podcast channels here in like 1 or 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure when this one's going to be released. Hi guys. Okay, so just a kind of a little bit of behind the scenes, and let me take my camera out so you can see just what I'm doing to get set up. So I record all my podcasts on Zoom. I've been using Zoom for years, so everybody who's like all on the Zoom train now because of 2020, suckers, you've ruined it, because now there's like all these different privacy steps that make it a lot more complicated. But usually I don't record video with the podcast lately because I found that I was getting really behind on my podcast because I didn't do this all the time, especially being home with my kids all day. Like, I don't want to get made up to look, presentable to be put on YouTube and Instagram. So there's been a lot less video of the podcast, and just that way I make sure that I'm being consistent, because it's my goal to release a podcast every single week. That's like my commitment to myself. That's my commitment to you, is to release a podcast every single week. And so there's a lot of prep work that can go into each episode. And I find that when I do video, I put a lot of that stuff off, and then I just feel like the quality, I'm more focused on like what my hands are doing and how I'm performing rather than what I'm saying. And so with podcasts, especially, it's all about the audio, but it is easier on my team and it is easier in marketing when there's video component to it. So I've got my computer set up. So this is my camera looking at me, looking at you. It's like, the Matrix, Inception. But basically every podcast episode, so my social media manager and I kind of get together once a quarter, and we plan out the content that we want to talk about on the podcast. We use what posts have done really well, what episodes have had a lot of downloads, the questions you guys are asking. So the more you communicate with me about your questions, your struggles, the more content we can create that's going to help you and serve you. So don't stop that. Send me a DM. Let me know what it is you want to have a podcast episode on. We take all of those considerations, all of those DMs, and we add them to our ongoing brainstorm list. So we usually try to plan out 2 to 3 months of podcasts in advance, so that way I can start to prep my notes. Now I keep it really simple on myself. I don't overcomplicate this, because if it's super complicated, I won't do it and I won't be consistent with it. Sound familiar? If your marketing's complicated, you don't get consistent with it. So my format for podcast, inside tip, is real quick and easy. I have a hook. Think of it like a headline, an attention grabber. When somebody's listening to the podcast in the first 10 seconds, I want them to know what we're going to cover in the episode. I don't know if you remember back in high school, the writing or the English teacher was always like, tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them. That's essentially what I'm doing. So I give you a hook. There's usually some sort of story component to it, how this either idea came about, or the question, or somebody's struggle that asked me this question that we're going to cover in the podcast episode. Then I come up with 3 teaching points, 3 to 5. Usually I try to just keep it to 3 because I want the episodes to be short. My goal was to keep it 15 minutes or less so you guys could listen to it on your drive, or you could listen to while you're lashing. And then I started getting long-winded in how I was talking. So they've been 20 to 30 minutes. And then if you listen to the episode with my business coach, it was an hour and a half. He is not a man of a few words, that's for sure. So today I think I have 4 teaching points I'm going to go over. And then I do a summary, just kind of a quick, here's what we talked about. And then I usually have what's called a call to action, a CTA. That is, what does somebody listening do? Is there a challenge involved? Is there something they can implement? Do I want them to go download something? Do I want them to subscribe? Do I want them to leave a review? Do I want them to share that they're listening? Just kind of coming up with a broad variety of calls to actions. Now, the way that I format this is the exact same way that you can format any lives that you're doing, that you can format your social media posts, is headline, something of value, educational, informational, inspirational, whatever, kind of a summary, and then a call to action. You always need a call to action. And it's really helpful if that call to action is like creating the relationship rather than just going in for the hard sell of like, buy my stuff, book an appointment, make it relational, leave a comment. Have you ever experienced this? Just get that conversation going. So my call to action to you today is to watch the whole video and let me know if you want more behind the scenes stuff. If you're like, yeah, no, I'm good. All right. So I've got my notes pulled up. I've got the video pulled up. I'm going to put you guys over here so that I can make sure. Got a little holder for my phone. Okay. All right. So let me get recording real quick here. I know, so exciting. Ready, record on this computer. Oh, and I have my microphone. I normally have a stand where it hangs in front of me, and since I've moved, I haven't been able to find the stand yet, so we're just gonna hold it like this so the audio quality is pretty good. All right, so you guys are getting a sneak peek of the podcast episode 125 or 6 on how to get customers to find you. Yes, that's what we're talking about today. And you guys can feel free to ask questions at the end. Once I've done the podcast, I'll do a little Q&A with you guys if you have questions. All right, let's get going. Happy Friday, Lashpreneurs. I am also doing this live on Instagram to give you a little behind the scenes, a little BTS. I will save it as an IGTV live. So if you're listening on the podcast, go over to Instagram at the Lashpreneur, and you can check this episode being recorded live. I did a little preview beforehand before we got started recording. So here we go. Today, we are going to cover how a customer finds you. How does a customer find your business? Now, we talk about marketing. We talk about just the customer buying psychology a lot on our social media platform and inside of our business coaching program, the Lashpreneur Society. Shameless plug there. But how does a customer actually go about finding you? And this podcast episode was inspired because I actually just moved all the way across country. I moved from Southern California to Nashville, Tennessee. And you cannot say Nashville, Tennessee without a Southern drawl, my friends. So if I go in and out of y'alls, you know why. But I've been here about 6 weeks and I am in need of getting my hair done, getting somebody to do my lashes. Truth be told, I have been a nail biter my entire life. And for some reason, July 2020, my brain was like, and we're done with that. So I've stopped biting my nails and now I'm in need of getting my nails done, which is not something I've ever had to do before. So how does a customer go about finding you? You have to think about your customer, your potential customer. Make her up in your head if you don't have any customers right now. How would she go about finding you? Where is she looking? Now, if I'm new to town, I don't know anybody really here. I have a couple of contacts, but they're not really close to me. So for me, I don't have word of mouth referrals that I can kind of go off of. I can't ask my friend, hey, where'd you get your hair done? And she's like, Tiffany down the street, tell her Jessica sent you, right? That would be ideal because that word of mouth does a lot more for price point, kind of covering over a lot of the other marketing steps when somebody is personally referring you. So in this society, I talk about the marketing funnel where people become aware of you, where they get interested in you, and where they desire what you have to offer. Now, in that, if you don't have a lot of those set up, the word of mouth referral can be a quick and easy way for you to not have a whole lot of the other marketing steps in place, not a whole lot of online stuff. A word of mouth referral can cover you a lot for marketing. And ultimately, after a while, that should be your primary source of referrals, and marketing is word of mouth. But you need to have all the other steps too, because people like me who are new to the area, who have no idea who I'm going to go or where I'm going to go or what I'm looking for, is you need to have an online presence. So the first thing I did, both in looking for my hair and for my nails, is I Googled. I did the googly Googles. Now, the key thing here is SEO is not necessarily where you need to spend your energy and efforts. I would say the top places, if you want to show up on Google to spend your time and energy, are Google reviews and Google My Business. And I think you need the Google My Business in order to have the Google reviews, because reviews is the social proof. It is that digital virtual version of a word of mouth referral. So it is also very keyword rich. So it helps you, rather than having to like build out your whole website being SEO and show up for certain keywords but not others, and all the time and energy and learning curve it takes with SEO. That's a quick kind of way to get around it, because when you Google search a service or a restaurant or a fitness center or whatever it is you're looking for, what usually comes up at the very top? Well, first of all, there's ads, right? Paid ads are always the way to go if you want to get a quick, easy win. But then there's usually review sites. So Google review and then Yelp reviews often come up above any other organic SEO business because they're very keyword rich. It'll be like your top 10 nail salons in your city, right? So that is first and foremost where you should be spending some time in getting your current clients to go leave you reviews. So in my search, I did my Google search. There were like 3 or 4 salons that, my standard is at least 4 stars or above. I'm not that price sensitive. I want a lot of value for the price, but I'm willing to spend an extra $10, $20, $30 if need be to get what I want. So I'm less concerned about the price point and more concerned about the result that I'm getting as a customer. So I go to read a couple reviews. Now here's where it's interesting for those of you that are fearful of getting any sort of reviews or asking for reviews or getting review websites up is that you're afraid that you're going to get a bad review. Now, I teach a trick, and I'll give you a little inside scoop on what that trick is inside of the society, but you are missing out on business if you're not getting your current clients to prove to strangers that, hey, your money's safe here. Like, she is good. She made me feel great. I got a great result. I got the result I wanted, whatever. Because if you're so worried about the 1, maybe 2 negative reviews that you might get over your entire career, then you're actually missing out on all of the other clients who might come in because of a positive review. So you got to flip your perspective there to not be so afraid of what might happen. People are more likely to leave you a good review if you ask the people who are happy with the result. So a little best practice there is that you should be asking for reviews from clients who love you, because that will help drown out any negative reviews you might get. And also, when I'm reading reviews, I look for the bad reviews, right? It's just human nature. It's like a car crash. Like, you hear the sound, you're just waiting for the crunch. I look for the bad reviews. But what I'm looking at is how the business owner responded to the bad reviews. Because if the business owner gets real catty, nasty, and aggressive in the response to the bad review, I'm like, she's high maintenance. Like, if I'm unhappy, she's not gonna make it right with me. You know, if a business owner responds in a unemotional state with the facts and either takes ownership for it if it was the business owner's fault, or they put blame on the client, it can sway me either way. So your bad reviews can be just as much good social proof for you as a good review, if that makes sense. Meaning that your response to a bad review can go miles for a potential customer, either trusting you or thinking you're high maintenance, you're cray-cray, not gonna spend my money there because I'm gonna get burned, right? So just keep that in mind. If ever a bad review should come up, don't react, respond when you're in a good headspace to do so. Okay, so Google, then reviews. Then, this is where a lot of places around here failed, maybe they haven't followed me yet, is that I went to go look for their website, because their Google reviews, they had some pictures, but the thing with the review sites is that you, the business owner, don't actually get to choose what photos come up first. Some of that is a paid feature, so I think on Yelp you can pay to order the photos, but I'm getting a lot of like blurry people like showing their fingers where the photo is not great quality. For me with nails, like the issue I've had with nails is the chiclet nails. So one salon I went to that had decent reviews, I left with chiclet nails. Now, if you don't know what chiclet nails are, Google chiclet gum, then imagine walking around with that on your hand. That's what happened. And I had paint still all over my fingers, and homegirl had already moved on to the next client, and I had to like uncomfortably stop and be like, can you help me get the paint off? And she tried, and then she was like, it'll just come off in a few days. And I'm like, but I'm paying a lot of money for this. Like, I don't want to walk out with paint on my fingers. I could have done that at home. So you want to make sure that, yes, you have reviews, but your website is where you control the journey that a potential customer goes on. So if I land on your website, does it make me feel like, wow, she gets me, she's gonna do the type of work? Or is it gonna be like, whoa, I don't need black lips, or I don't need to look like a drag queen, I'm gonna go on to the next person because I'm a mom who hardly ever wears makeup. You guys are quite blessed here on Instagram today to see that I'm actually wearing makeup. For those of you on the podcast, you can actually go see me wearing makeup. I do, on occasion, wear makeup. Most of the time, I don't though. So if I had really heavy, thick lashes, it would look really inappropriate on days that I don't wear makeup, which is most of the day, which is how my husband sees me most of the time. And I don't want him thinking that I'm gonna fly away from him with my lashes on days that I'm not wearing makeup. So your website is going to repel or attract based on who it is that you're trying to get into your business. So if you want the women that are in their 40s, 50s, have a lot of disposable income, have maybe some extra time on their hands, maybe they have rich husbands and they've retired, or they own their own business, then I wouldn't be putting 18-year-old Kylie Jenner, well, I guess Kylie Jenner is now 22, sorry, and she is mom, but I wouldn't be putting that strong, bold, really youthful look all over my website if I'm trying to get somebody in their 40s and 50s. They have different pain points. They have different problems that eyelash extensions can solve. So your website, your social media, your marketing can reflect that, or it can repel them. So for me, I went to go look for websites. 2 of them didn't have websites. One of them sent me to their Facebook page where I could book. They did have that option to book a service. However, this was late at night last night and I went to go book a service and I didn't know if I got the appointment or not because I guess it didn't actually go through, or it went to a message, but there was no confirmation of like, we've got your appointment, or somebody will contact you in the morning. So me as the customer left confused. So I didn't know this morning if I had an appointment or not. I decided I'd just be a walk-in 10 minutes after they opened, which was 10 minutes after the appointment I requested. And it was fine. But if you are by appointment only, then you've just created confusion in the customer. If you have a website and you have booking software, the steps are very clear that if somebody wants to book at 2 a.m., because they're thinking about it, they don't have to message you. They don't have to contact you whatsoever. They just book the appointment. And that's the beautiful thing about online booking and websites, is that your customers can be doing the research. They can be doing the social proof. They can really decide whether you're right for them, and they can book the appointment without you having to be involved in a single step. It's very automated, hands off when it's done correctly. So go to the website. I would have booked the appointment, paid a deposit, whatever I had to do on a website if they had the option. They didn't. But sure enough, I decided I would just go this morning because I had the time anyways, and I went and got my nails done. She did a great job. She missed out on one thing. She didn't ask if I wanted to rebook, and I did. And so then I had to say, can I rebook? And then she had me write down my name, my date, my phone number, the time I wanted to come in on the back of the receipt that I signed. So now I'm thinking, is she going to put that in a system? Like, is she going to write it down somewhere? It's on the back of her receipt. I'm blocking out that time. Is she? So just thinking about what your customer experience is from the point that they need your service and how they go about finding you as an option to provide a service, and then how they go about determining whether you're the right service provider for them or not, and then how to make it easy on them to book the appointment. You have to be thinking about your customer's experience, their journey, before they've ever booked an appointment. Because all of that, all of those little decisions, all of those little actions, the more little actions a potential customer takes, the higher the likelihood that they're going to become a customer. That's why with the podcast, we start off with podcast. I know my podcast listeners are the most likely to become customers of mine because they get notifications once a week. We have very consistent downloads and growing downloads, so I know that they're getting the episodes every week. We have calls to action in the podcast where we want you to go take another action. So go download something, go follow us on Instagram, go leave us a review, because the more little actions you take along the way, the more likely you are to take paid actions further down the road. But I have to be thinking through the journey that you're going to take. How can I provide value for you? How can I make your day better? How can I make you more informed, more educational? How can I build trust with you so that you'll eventually want to do business with me? It's not necessarily going to be an overnight thing. It's not like you're going to listen to the first episode of the podcast and be like, done. How do I sign up for a most expensive coaching package? There's a nurture sequence that has to happen. There is a nurturing of that relationship. But the more frequent and the more consistent you are, same thing with social media, the more frequent and consistent you are with social media, the more you're building that trust and relationship, that it becomes much easier to not necessarily compete on price, to not necessarily worry about what your competition is doing, to not have to be the cheapest in town, because you have a relationship with that person. You've built that relationship over weeks, months, maybe even years, who knows? But you will be top of mind the more consistent you are in your marketing. And that all starts with, who is it I want to target? Who is the type of client I want in? How are they looking for me? Why do they even need my service? Thinking about your customer, their problems, and how they're going to go about finding you is what is way better than you can do any sort of social media posting. If you don't have that figured out before you ever post, I would just stop posting on social media altogether right now. Figure that out, then go back to the drawing board of where you should be marketing, how you should be marketing, and who you should be marketing to. All right, guys, that is it for today's episode. I will see you again next week. Make sure if you're listening to the podcast that you go check out the IGTV of me wearing makeup, recording this podcast, and doing behind the scenes. Until next time, have a good one. And that's how it's done. What do you guys think? Got a little behind the scenes of me recording a podcast. For those of you that joined kind of midway through, you can go back and watch this. We talk about how I format my podcast, which is very similar how you can form your lives, which is very similar to how you can form your posts, so that you're providing value, so that you're telling them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. All right. Oh, Jessica, hi. Okay, I did see one question, but it was vague. Let's see. What did you say the 3 things were, Roxbury? Roxbury, if you can just kind of give me a heads up as to what you meant by that. The name of the podcast is The Lessons of a Lashpreneur Show. You can find it anywhere podcasts are listened to. So the teaching points I went over today are, basically how does a customer find you? I searched Google. Then I looked at reviews. Then I looked for a website, and then I went to book. So if you think about your customer's experience, your customer's journey, most of them will start off with either asking a friend or with searching online, Google. Sometimes they'll use Instagram as well, searching hashtags. Now, just a heads up for you, those of you in the US, hashtags aren't on right now. They turned hashtags off before the election so that there wasn't any weird sort of political stuff happening with hashtags, and they haven't turned it back on. So if you've noticed your engagement going down and reach going down, that's happening across the board. We're all experiencing that. So just as a heads up. Another thing too, that you guys get a bonus because you're watching, for my hair, right? Like looking for a hairstylist. For me, I like blonde. I'm kind of working on going blonde now. Luckily, ombre is a thing. Like the tired mom look is like totally in right now. Yay. But it's about time. It's been about 6 weeks since I've had my hair done, and I'm looking to get it done. Now, I've done a little Google searching, but I'm just, getting your hair done takes a long time, so I haven't made the time for it. But I was walking into Target the other day, and I was walking behind a girl who was probably, 10 years younger than me, but she had this beautiful buttery blonde hair, and I was like, I want that hair color. So I stopped her. I'm that awkward lady, like, hey, can I get your hair girl's information? Poor thing, and Brooklyn, if you ever watch this, because I'm going to contact you here, you need a website, sister, because she was like, well, her name's Brooklyn. I don't know her last name. I usually just contact her on Facebook. And I'm like, okay, how do I find her on Facebook? Well, she works at the salon down there. Maybe just call that salon and like ask for her information. The client didn't have any way to give me her service provider's name. Hence why you need Google, maybe business cards, maybe a website. Oh, go to hairwithbrooklyn.com. You can book on there. Great, I would have already booked had that been the case. So now I have to like find time to research who Brooklyn is at this one salon and like try to go get a hold of her somehow, like awkwardly, like, hey, I don't know what services you offer, but I want what Misty, I did get her name, Misty has. Can you do Misty on my hair? So just another way of like, even if you don't have the money to do a lot of paid advertising, business cards are really inexpensive. A website can be really inexpensive. You don't have to have thousands of dollars to do all this stuff. You can do it for, I think websites, Wix website, you could do the free version. If that's all you've got to do the free version where it's got the Wix web address and it's got the Wix advertising all over the place. It's better than nothing. But it's like, I think anywhere from $7 to $15 a month for a website. So it's really, really inexpensive, especially when you are probably losing out on money by not having one. So that is my tips for you guys. Let me know, did you like the behind the scenes? Did you like kind of the BTS as they call it these days, as those crazy kids are calling it? Let me know. And then, check out the podcast, Lessons of a Lashpreneur Show. We release a new episode every Friday. You can find it wherever podcasts are, wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, guys, have a good one.